Although the point of view is purely subjective, August 1970 is probably Elvis at his absolute peak as a live performer. Having already conquered Las Vegas with both his return to live performances a year before, or consolidating that position with a triumphant return in January-February 1970. Whilst updating his set list with more contemporary material, he reached another level entirely in August.
The stratospheric levels that Elvis would reach in this Vegas season would never again be reached with such consistency. Elvis would still have many more peaks and outstanding shows, but not for a complete season. And for that, there were many reasons. Maybe not clear then, but certainly now.
And during that August 1970 season, there is a show which was billed by his record company RCA, Sony, at the time of its release in 2001 as probably the greatest concert he ever gave, and these upcoming songs makes it difficult to disagree.
This show is, of course, the midnight show of 12th of August 1970 in the International Hotel in Las Vegas, the fifth show of a massive 59 show run. Elvis is still fresh, and luckily the MGM cameras were there during production of That's the Way It Is to capture most of the action during the first six shows.
So, Leon, the first song we're going to review from the show is Mystery Train slash Tiger Man, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, where the fun really starts.
Yeah, and I'm going to get it out there as well, Leon. It is one of my favourite concerts of all time. And well, as a younger kid growing up, I didn't realise it was a separate show to the rest on That's Way It Is, the original one.
Yeah.
But when you see it as a whole now, it definitely brings to light that it was one of Elvis's best shows he ever gave. You know.
Yeah, I don't think people. You can argue that set list wise, it's probably not the best. Where the misnomer comes into this, I think, is the fact that two of Elsie's best performances and best songs throughout that whole season, "I've Lost You" and "I Just Can't Help Believing," weren't even in that show.
No, exactly. It was
And
it was. I think it was made for let's just start and get through it quickly as possible. Don't you think so? But it
yeah,
turned out to be a really tight show that night.
oh, I think what happened was I think from the minute that I think once he kicked into Tiger Man, I think he felt an electricity in the audience that night, and I think he started to feel off them. And then after he'd done a couple more songs, I think he really then just really got into a groove that he never left. Now, don't get me wrong, there were other shows which
Yeah,
almost reached that, but
almost did. Yeah,
I just think that
but there was
because
no. But did you? I find like in the shows prior to this one in the engagement, Elvis fooled around a lot. But on this show, it was tight. It was like there was no messing about. It was just like bang, 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 bang.
yeah, you're dead right, absolutely. There was none of that. There is a wee bit of the Gatorade joke before Love Me Tender. There's a wee bit of that, but essentially, it's just there's everything about that show. It just all comes together the best. And when I have a debate with people about, they'll say maybe a later show, maybe in '72 or '71 or '73 is maybe a better show. The reason I point, single reason, and we'll cover this a bit further on, is that every single song, regardless whether it's a '50s song, is treated with equal consideration. There's no run throughs. There's no quick get a song over and done with. Every song is treated with the same respect and I think that's why that show is so unique.
And I really like words from that show as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's very, very good. The final time we did it as well, but it's very, very good.
Oh, and I think it's a triumph as well that Elvis got it the way he wanted it to be because he had problems with it like the year prior, and I think he finally nailed it in the way he wanted it to be, and he got it that night.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Totally agree. But I think it all started, as I say, with what we're talking about now, that Mystery Train Tiger Man. I really think that that's where it started. And what's disappointing to me is that in the original film, and I kind of understand why they did it. They omitted Mystery Train and instead they used it to introduce the second part of That's the Way It Is, when you have the UK fan club convention in Luxembourg, and then you have the impersonators on stage,
Oh
and then it
God,
leads, yeah, and then it leads into Tiger Man. I can understand that because
I'm getting
for
flashbacks.
1977, yeah,
Yeah, it was irrelevant back then,
it
but
was.
when you watch it now, it's a little bit cringe-worthy, innit?
But if it's acceptable then why have an abbreviated version in over the opening credits in the 2001 version of the movie?
True,
That
true.
is so disappointing. So disappointing.
Do you know
So
what really
disappointing.
annoys me about the first one? Not the first one, I beg your pardon. 2001 version,
Yeah.
which you're talking about, and the titles come up Elvis. They deliberately like enhance the drums to have that E, L.
Yeah.
I'm like, no,
No.
there's no need for that at
No.
all.
Yeah.
Nah, I mean, as you've said in past conversations about this film itself, I mean the recent one. Well, I say recent; it's 19 years old now. Um, the special edition version, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
You know, it's good to look at. It's HD, or it's Blu-ray, whatever. But they've taken out the best material that was at the time promoting the album promoting the movie. It went hand in hand. Now the album and that do not mix anymore. They
No,
don't
they
go. They
don't.
don't go together as a set, or it's just like the guy whoever was dealing with that project. What the hell were you doing?
Yeah.
Because you clearly want. Oh, have you seen the trailer for that? Actually, like,
Yeah.
oh, I was concentrating on the eye contact in this. Oh, go and piss off. Seriously?
Yeah, I totally. It's the problem with the 2001 film. It's not about what's in it, and it looks good. By the way, it really does look good.
Do you know what?
Optically, it's great.
Do you know what I've noticed as well about that movie, Leon? The second one. I need to sort of like say to the listeners, there was two versions. There was the theatrical version in 1970, and then in 2001 they re-released it again as a special edition. It was out in the cinemas as well, and so they revamped it, but they took a lot of the good songs out. That's what me and Leon are basically complaining about. But in the new one, it's seen Elvis as a bit of a grump
It
throughout.
does.
Yeah, I'm like, and it's like, are they trying to make Elvis sound like he's just annoyed at the band members all the time? Because
Hmm.
that's the way I see it, Leon. Especially on August the 4th,
Yeah.
and it's just a lot of Elvis nitpicking, especially on the bridge over troubled water. And I'm thinking, no, that's not the way Elvis is or was. Yes, he would get frustrated because Elvis is trying to explain the way he wants it. Because sometimes Elvis couldn't really explain it in a way that he wanted it to come across, that they would
Yeah.
understand. But I've noticed in that movie it's that they've just sort of like edited it to make it look like Elvis is just complaining throughout that whole section of the movie. I don't know if
Yeah.
you agree with that, Leon, in that part.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. There's far too many edits, and
Oh, it's
some of the edits,
unbelievable.
some of the edits, and it's gave me a reason on my channel to fix a lot of those edits. The
Yes.
bit over troubled water that you mentioned, I've got that on there complete, and then you see Elvis actually have a bit of fun as well as the grumpiness that you mentioned. But that grumpiness isn't grumpiness; that's just Elvis producing. That's all that is. It's just him being a producer.
Yeah, he's
And
not being nasty in the
no,
slightest.
he's not.
He's just leading his band,
He is
and
exactly.
he's trying to get the best out of them. And I really like the one you put up, Leon. You don't have to say you love me from that section,
Yeah,
August 4th, and
yeah,
I love all that. And
yeah,
it's I just really wish they would release it out in one go and just but well, we've had this conversation a few times now since we've met,
yeah,
and it's difficult because it belongs to MGM and
yeah,
Turner, and
yeah.
but end of the day, the reason why we're talking about that is because of what we're talking about now is August the 12th, and most of that show was included in the original.
It was, yeah. And there's perfectly good reason,
Oh,
perfectly good reasons for that.
definitely, and thankfully Dennis Saunders seen that, and Dennis Saunders was the director of the movie, and
Yeah,
it's I'm just so glad that they got like the most of the 50s section in there as well. I think, did they get it in its entirety? I can't remember.
They did. The only thing that they didn't get was that Harpreet Cattell played over a montage of the Las Vegas casinos.
And like you said, it worked for back then.
It did. It did. But we'll speak a bit more about that particular section a bit further on. So let me ask you, John, 69 version of this versus this version?
69 version, it's a bit more, I don't know. Yeah, it's a bit sloppy.
Yeah.
And I find with this one, as you said in the notes, it's a bit more polished. In fact, it's even a lot more polished than, say, August 10th.
Yeah. But Elvis actually takes the mic off the stand.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But what I like about this, I've got to be honest, John, this is one of the songs that actually pulled me into becoming an Elvis fan when I was only about 5 years old. My dad got an unofficial copy of That's the Way It Is. We just got our first video recorder, and a Saturday morning through the post came this parcel, and it was just a cardboard video cover with a video in it, and that's essentially a pirated copy of That's the Way It Is. This is 1981, remember, and my dad played it to death, and by the way, I think he's still got that copy, but he played it to death to the point where you can hardly make it out now. But watching that, and it was that version of Tiger Man in that really pulled me in. And do you know the bit I always remember? It's just in the song where Elvis just goes, he gives out a woo in that, and it's just, I don't know, it just feels as if Elvis right in there. And then you hear that unbelievable James Burton guitar solo, and I go, oh wow! But what I've noticed with when Sony in 2014 brought out the That's the Way It Is Deluxe version, but all the shows from That's the Way It Is all remastered, so they sounded as if they're actually recorded in the same venue. Then you hear a few cheers of appreciation during the song.
Yeah.
And that to me just showed that the audience are already feeding off what Elvis is doing on the stage, and that's when you know that something special's about to happen.
And it's a shame that, the electricity didn't last. Well, I mean, that season was probably one of his best in his life, but
it's fabulous
in his whole career. But I mean, it's just, obviously, MGM only had a certain amount of time to record there, which is fine.
Yeah.
And I just wish that they also done, August the 14th with Oh Happy Day.
Oh wow.
But I think us as Elvis fans, Elvis left us wanting more all the time. And and the poor guy gave us a lot of material. Do you know what I mean? And so we should be grateful for that as it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we play the song, John, I just want to ask you one more thing.
Go for it, yeah.
So later on, Elvis would often alternate Mystery Train Tiger Man as the penultimate song for his shows with Funny How Time Slips Away.
That's right, yeah.
What do you think of those later versions?
Funny you should mention that, because I listened to Elvis the Spring Tours.
75.
77.
Oh, 77. Oh, Spring Tour 77. I beg your pardon.
Spring Tour 77 one, right? And ooh, not good. It's a physically demanding song as well. Excuse me.
That's not a particularly good album as far as capturing Elvis is concerned. I don't think that's
definitely not. And I'm trying to think of other versions I've heard now, because of the fact that he does a good version in 71. He keeps that electricity just about there, and I'm thinking, is there other? I mean, how many times did Elvis do Mystery Train throughout his career?
He did it quite a bit, over 200 times. He did it quite a bit. There's a great version in the 3rd of September 1973 closing show where he said it says Tiger Man specifically. This is for the hierarchy at the Hilton Hotel, when he's really angry when he goes into Tiger Man in that one, and that's full of anger, and it works.
Yeah,
It
well,
works.
it's one of those songs that, yeah, like I said, it requires a lot of energy, but it requires a mood as well.
It does. It does. There's some good ones in 1975 as well. During that the spring tour, the one out of the spring tour, I was thinking through that April and May 1975. I don't even remember the Elvis Aaron Presley set. There was a good
Yeah,
one. There was a good version on that as well.
I quite like the Tiger Man from the Elves Today sessions as well.
The Jam.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, but Elvis was always great when he was jamming.
Can I just jam all the time?
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah,
oh, the band are so good, and I thought this is 75,
yeah.
and I don't know why. I mean, I know like RCA, they fed off of Elvis's jams and just released them as masters anyway.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they didn't do that with Tiger Man from '75.
Well, we got it eventually, though, didn't we?
We got it eventually on the '70s masters, yeah. Um, but yeah, I think that version and '75 would be my favourites.
Yeah, definitely. But this one, I just think this version's completely unparalleled. I just think it's fabulous.
And do you want to introduce this one then, Leon?
Yeah, this will be the 12th of August midnight show, and probably now just really have a listen to James Butler's guitar solo, and listen out for what we mentioned for that. Just those cheers of appreciation during that song.
Enjoy. So that was Mystery Train slash Tiger Man from the August 12th show in 1970. So the same show, and the next song is Hound Dog.
Yeah, a pretty standard version of Hound Dog all the same. But what I will say is the Elvis growl is still in evidence in that, and it's also another magnificent James Butler guitar solo. And the pity is, John, that solo was like everything else; it would soon disappear, and then the song would be relegated to a throwaway that you feel Elvis is only put in out of obligation. And some versions in later years, they're barely a minute long.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's almost that.
Why
It's
put
even
it? Why
that.
put it in there in the first place?
He probably feels he had to.
But he was Elvis Presley. He didn't have to really do anything.
No, he didn't have to, but maybe he just felt obligated to do that. But
Elvis felt a bit. He felt like he owed people too many things, and I thought he doesn't owe anybody anything because, you know, he's the artist, he's the entertainer,
yeah,
and you know, so I always trusted Elvis's judgment with his music. I always did. I thought if he's going to do a cover of that, I'm thinking, ooh, but
yeah,
Elvis
yeah,
Elvis always does a cover. He does it his own way, and you trust him to do it
yeah,
his own way. And
yeah.
same with Hound Dog. I mean, Hound Dog wasn't Elvis's song anyway. It was
Big,
Big Mama Thornton.
yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, when you come to think of it, Leon, like Hound Dog, obviously it was one of his first hits from '56, right?
Hmm, hmm.
But Elvis took a massive 30 takes because he was quite passionate about the song
Yeah,
at one point,
yeah,
and you just don't do 30 takes because something's not right. It's just that he felt he could give himself more and more and more to the song, and the band are like, Elvis, we had it say way back in take 10 or something, and he just wanted to keep going, and I think they picked, what was it, take 28 or something. I can't remember
yeah.
it was I've read something about it, and you know I get Hound Dog is not, it's not one of my favourites in the slightest. I'm not going to
But
lie.
if you strip it down, John, if you hadn't recorded Hound Dog, then the Steve Allen show would never have happened, and everything that came after that would never have happened.
That's it. And maybe what you're saying as Elvis felt obligated. Maybe he feels obligated to the song, and it opened up paths to him. Maybe
Yeah,
I don't know.
the controversy that caused it, because it was the Steve Allen show. And a lot of people think, and Elvis mentions this during the filming of that story, is that a lot of people think that he did Hound Dog on first on the Ed Sullivan show. He didn't. He did it in the Steve Allen show, and that's the one that caused all the controversy, where he slows the song down towards the end and he's going round the
Give
mic.
me the old Rudy Valley days.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
um, that's it, and that's what gave Elvis the rebel image.
yeah. So obviously there are 100 million versions of Hound Dog out there, John. So I think we won't play this one for that very reason. Although I would say, and I'm going to plug my channel a wee bit here for a wee second here.
Of course.
If you get a chance to look at this particular version, it's on my channel. The footage isn't is there's quite a bit of footage of that performance, but very little of it is of Elvis himself. But what's worth watching? There's two things that's worth watching it for. First of all, it gives you a great side view of Ronnie Tutt at work, and it really shows how fantastic a drummer Ronnie Tutt was.
Oh yeah.
And secondly, there's a cracking monologue at the start. But Elvis does his usual. He has a wee bit of a laugh at Johnny Cash's expense, and also explains why during the introduction for That's All Right Mama and for Mystery Chain, why he wasn't wearing a guitar. So have a wee look at that and I'll explain that to you. So will we move on to Love Me Tender, John?
Yes, of course. And as you were, plugging the channel there for yourself, as you do, and I was I was reading your notes on Love Me Tender here,
Yeah.
and you know, Love Me Tender 56 version, I hate it with an absolute passion, and I hate. I'm going to say the word hate again. I dislike saying that about Elvis stuff
Yeah.
because I feel like, but the song is so boring, and it's just maybe because it's just the guitar on its own. I don't know, but as soon as Elvis brought it to the comeback special, I thought, oh, this is quite a nice song. It's got nice arrangements, and then 1970 comes along, and I'm like, wow, this is even better. And I appreciate it now as a song as of, say like the 1956 version.
Yeah. I I think the problem with and I use problem in inverted commas. The problem with these versions from August 1970 is they are a bit long and a bit repetitive. If you're watching it, it's good to watch because Elvis has a lot of interaction with the audience, particularly the female members of the audience. But just listening to it goes on, and it's no surprise that Sony and RCA edited a lot of these versions before they
Yeah,
released them.
yeah.
Yeah, the version that came out, the special edition of That's the Way As, it came out in 2001 on CD, the 3 discs. So
Oh, it's
it's
so highly,
edited.
it's edited to hell.
It is. It is.
Oh, it's like,
It is.
what happened in it? But I like the bit where it goes into that sort of instrumental.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that, and
What's
the band is so tight. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
what's good about that is you don't have Elvis singing, and it gives you an insight into the band and the backing singers because they're all doing their stuff at that point, and
yeah,
it just gives you a couple of minutes of just listening to them at work, and that's really
yeah.
good.
And you know what? Although Elvis is getting the spotlight throughout going through the audience, right? And but it's given us the listeners, as you say, a chance to hear the band at work.
Hmm. Yeah,
And beautiful song. It's a really nice melody.
it is, but another problem is that like all the 50 songs, Elvis would, as years went on, it become another throwaway because he would use "Love Me" as his sort of song for interact or Teddy Bear for
Yeah.
interacting with the audience, and the songs would be less than 2 minutes long.
But
But then Con,
did you notice on Sunday Past there, Leon, on my show, I put the 1974 version of Love Me Tender on
yes,
there.
I did, I
and
did.
I quite like that version.
Yeah, but there's still a wee bit of commitment there, and that's a bit different. It's just when it became a real throwaway, and
Yeah.
I'd rather he just dropped it completely, to be honest. But
Yes.
of course that's in vast contrast. Now I might be enlightening a lot of the listeners, they might know, but just know exactly a week later, on the 19th of August, during the dinner show, he did a version that was 15 minutes long. Now,
Really?
yeah. Now, Rick Rennie, who recorded a lot of these shows. And this, if you get a chance to listen to them, they're audience recorded, but he
Right.
recorded them with a mic right next to the speakers, and the sound is incredible. But what Rick Rennie did, what he's wrote in his notes on this, and this might enlighten a lot of people. He actually edited it, so, and he's written on his notes for it, because apparently Elvis got so immersed in interacting with the audience that booing started to happen. It was
Yeah.
going on too long. So Rick Rennie actually edited that out because he didn't want to actually to have that on his tape when somebody bought it off him.
Yeah.
So although it was still August 1917, Elvis was in the groove, he still had that wee tendency to
Yes,
maybe,
exactly.
yeah. So, but don't get me wrong, those both of those shows on the 19th of August are absolutely magnificent shows. But just that, can you imagine being in the audience and it's 15 minutes long, and Elvis is more concerned with interacting with the ladies at the front?
Yeah. How? Yeah. But yeah. How would you feel as
A
a
paying customer.
male, a paying? Yes. And sometimes Elvis would sort of forget his surroundings. Sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. But of course, you're human like everybody else.
Well, that's it. He's maybe he's lost in the moment, and you know, it's you can't give it. You can't please everyone,
Yeah,
and that's it. And especially it's a live environment as well.
yes.
So there's like 2,000 people in that audience,
You're absolutely right.
and you can't give every single person that individual, you know, like commitment.
Oh,
And
absolutely right.
I mean, yes, I mean, it's hand in hand. It's Elvis and the girls. It's just the
Yeah.
way, it's just the way Elvis was,
I
and
thought you were going to say that's the way it is. Like I'm going to
that's the way
say.
it is. Where's that cymbal crash? But it was like, like it was a Las Vegas thing as well,
Yeah,
because
absolutely
Tom
right.
Jones done it, Engelbert done it.
Yes.
It was one
Yeah,
of it.
absolutely right.
It's not just Elvis that done it, and it's not just the way he was. It was like it was something that was done at that time.
But John, I'm going to add a caveat to that. Remember, this was a dinner show, and we spoke at this before. Dinner show tended to be full of high rollers who would sit there and
Hmm.
go, "I paid my money, entertain me." Not like the midnight show, but the dinner show. People fold their arms. The Las Vegas audience, right? I paid my money, now entertain me. So I think there's probably an element of that in that. I think had that been a midnight show, I don't think it would have mattered so much. I think people would have went with the flow.
Yeah, because yeah, I think with the midnight show, people they're out for a night out, and they want
Yes,
and they're going to see Elvis,
yeah,
and I think they're real fans,
absolutely right.
not like as you said that they're going for their dinner and their steak and their,
Yeah,
because I've heard a lot of in the past, Elvis's entourage or inner circle, as you want to call them, talking about these dinner shows, and
yeah.
Elvis hated them.
He did, especially when the International and the Hilton asked Elvis to try and keep the dinner shows to 50 minutes. I mean,
It's
to try and get
that's an
oh,
embarrassing time. I wouldn't, Elvis or not Elvis, right? I wouldn't go to a show that's just 50 minutes long, Leon. No way,
no, absolutely not,
because
absolutely not.
it's finished before it starts.
Oh, absolutely, John.
I mean, today's standards, you're looking at 2 hours with an interval. So
Yes,
I don't get it. Like for a dinner show, I mean, did they pay different? That's what I want to know actually. Was the ticket prices different for different times? Do you know about that?
no, I don't, John. I seriously
Something I
don't.
might actually look into, because
Yeah,
it's it's strange to ask the performer, right, to cut it down to a certain time. So they must have been charged at a different rate for different times going in to see Elvis. That is surely. I don't
possibly.
know. And maybe that's the backbone of how Elvis got a bit pissed.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. However,
So, however, onto a better note.
and,
Next up is
just pretend. Well, I
Just
was just going. I
Pretend.
was
Yeah.
just going, before that. I was just going to say that in the context of the show, John. After that amazing start with Mr. Train and Hound Dog, this is essentially, and it's about good 5, 6, 7 minutes long. This, but that's it. I think that's Elvis taking a breather. So anyway, we'll move on to where the show really starts to get absolutely fabulous, will we? To Just
Yes,
Pretend.
and do you know it's something, Leon? I love Just Pretend, and just quite recently I've been listening to this one as
Yeah,
of what we're used to seeing on the Lost Performances slash, 2001. That's the way it is.
yeah,
Um, much, but it's more the 12th of August. It's more like the studio version.
it is. I think what's happened with the Lost Performances version, which from 24 hours earlier, and I hate using this word with Elvis because people get it out of context, but there's quite a bit of bombast in that version where he maybe has a bit more power where it's not really needed. And I think he's took stock in that.
I think you're right because it gets to that point. It's when he goes, ha 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 ha. I'm like, really?
Yeah,
Elvis, there wasn't any need for that.
yeah. But first time he's done it live, John. He's probably thought, and then he's took stock of it, and then the result of that is the song that we're going to play in a minute, the version we're going to play in a minute, should I say, which is, as you say, he slowed it down, and it's almost like he's replicated that magnificent controlled vocal that he has in the studio version,
Yes.
and and it's really difficult a song to sing, especially with that the constant change between verse and chorus, and I
As
just think it's
as a singer,
fabulous.
Leon, I ruin it every time. The verses are okay. As soon as you get to that chorus, and that's when you appreciate Elvis as a vocalist because he's the king for a reason,
Yeah,
and it's like only he can do it. And I've seen many contenders. I've seen a few Elvis impersonators, or what do you want to call them, tribute
yeah,
acts, and
yeah,
you know, some guys do it. Uh, they do it okay, but they just don't do it brilliantly.
yeah,
And and it's out of the Elvis sort of network and community. A lot of people don't know about Just Pretend anyway.
yeah. It's really strange that.
I know it's like and and with the female fans, it's quite a popular song as well. Just Pretend.
Well, I mean, we had a discussion around that when we did the Nashville sessions a few weeks back, John. And we played on that occasion. We played the 13th of August, 13th of December, 1975 version,
Yeah.
and it's got a lovely bluesy feel to it, and it's got a wonderful, wonderful soprano from Kathy Westmoreland in that.
Yeah.
But this one, the new mix, I say new mix, it's 6 years old now, but the new mix, the deluxe version of That's the Way It Is gave it gives more prominence to that beautiful French horn, which you don't get on the one from 24 Hours Earlier. And also what you also get is you get Millie Kirkham's soprano, which I think really adds to the flavour of this version.
Yeah, because she was. I find in the old mixes that Millie Kirkham's just drowned out
Yeah,
on a lot of. She didn't do a lot of shows with them anyway,
yeah,
um, but throughout that engagement and on the original That's Way as well, you don't hear much of her at all, and you say to yourself, "What is she doing there?"
yeah,
But when, as you say, Leon, when you hear the deluxe version, you think, there it is. That's
yes,
the voice that Elvis would have been hearing, and the
absolutely,
audience would have been hearing, and
absolutely. So I would say to anybody now, listen out for that. Listen out when we play this. Listen out for the fact that it's slower than 24 Hours Earlier, and also just listen for that beautiful French horn and the wonderful Millie Kirkham soprano.
it's great. And
It is.
it's something, Leon. I've kind of bypassed it until I went to your channel, and I thought I'm going to give it a listen. And beautiful version. And the 1975 one blew me away.
Oh, 75 version's just
Oh,
magnificent.
because I think, oh no, it's a soundboard one, and I think, oh, don't know, because it's one of those songs that needs a good sound.
Yeah, it
But
does.
no, it's fine, and it's not 100%, but you get the feel of what the audience would have been hearing that night. I tell you for sure.
I definitely think you do. I
And
definitely think you do.
I think, Leon, you should introduce this one. And obviously they know what's coming up now, but
Yeah,
if you want
absolutely.
to introduce it, that would be great.
Yeah. So this is Just Pretend from the 12th of August Midnight Show. Beautiful version.
So that was Just Pretend from the 12th of August. And next up, we're going to review is Walk a Mile in My Shoes
Yeah,
from that show.
yeah. And that version's always overlooked, John, because like Just Pretend before, it's always the one from 24 Hours that gets all the prominence because that's the one that was in the most performances.
Brilliant song. And you know what? What an opener for, well, it's not a DVD, is it? It's a video.
No, yes,
And that's one
yes.
of my quarrels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why did they not release that on DVD?
Probably because as soon as that became popular, I think then what happened was the 2001 project became prominent, and they said we don't want to preempt that by because a lot of new stuff, and I use that I say new stuff because we've already had a conversation about that was supposed to be included in that. So I think that's probably why.
But I I would have rather have had the Lost Performances over 2001 version
In
any day
saying
of the
that though,
week.
it did come out on Laserdisc. Now, if you've seen now the Laserdisc version is better quality than the video one, and
Is there copies out there of that?
yes, I've actually got a copy of it. And if you go onto my channel you'll see that anywhere that stuff that's been taken from that, like the Don't Cry Daddy, which I've put together whether it should be within the ghetto from the 13th of August dinner show, it's the Laserdisc version that I've used, and you can see the difference in the quality.
I know what I'll be doing after this podcast. And you know what? Seeing the videos back then, like Nikam stereo was brilliant.
It was,
What a sound, mate, wasn't it?
yeah.
Oh,
But
but
now you hear it and you
yeah, ooh, it gets a bit distorted when it gets turned up but too loud, doesn't it?
yeah, it
But
does.
anyway, back to the matter at hand. Walk a
Yeah,
mile in my shoes. As you say, people are used to the one that was the day before,
yeah,
and that's the one that was released officially anyway.
yeah.
You know, and with Walk a Mile in My Shoes, Leon, you always say, like, I'll ask you a question, John, right? But
Sure, sure.
what do you think of the January version to compare to the August one?
Oh, what a massive difference. Massive difference.
Oh, what I just, you know what, and it sounds so bizarre, but I think it's one of the worst songs on the On Stage album. But then it's one of the strongest songs from the engagement in August. It's too slow in January. I prefer it to have that verse cut out as well. It Yeah, it's like he's just give it a bit more commitment this time round.
If you watch the version that we're talking about, if you watch that version, so there's a couple of cracking side views of Elvis, and you can especially towards the end of the song, and you can see that Elvis is right. He's really is right into it, and he
Yeah,
gives
because
a
you see a little bit of dance. That's it. I'm not saying
yeah.
he's not dancing. There's just movement.
Yes, and a couple of holes. You know that the way he does that in it as well. So there's a couple of
Yes,
them.
yeah.
There's a couple of them as well.
He's digging that song a lot more than he did
Yes,
the day before.
yes, yes. But he's now really starting to get right into that groove.
But so is the band, though, as we've been
Yes,
talking about since the start of this podcast
yeah,
today. And Glenn Hardin's all over the piano,
yes,
well all over it, and the piano is, I think, the key instrument in that song. Most
Oh, it's
definitely.
definitely. But let's not forget as well that January February 1970 versions was part of a medley
I
with In the
know.
Ghetto.
Oh yeah, so it was.
Two
That's right,
song,
yeah.
two similar songs thing together. So I think that's quite clever because in January 1970 he puts two songs of a similar theme together,
Yeah.
and then the only time he does that in the ghetto in August 1970, it puts it together with another Mac Davis song. So it's two Mac Davis songs together. I think that's quite clever.
Would Elvis himself come up with that idea, or would it have been Glenn Hardin?
I think it would have been a trio between uh, Glenn Hardin, Charlie Hodge, and Elvis himself. I don't think Elvis would. I don't think Elvis would have decided on that himself. I think that would have been pitched to him, and I think Elvis would have said, "Yeah, let's go with that." Because if you listen to the rehearsals, none of the rehearsals have the two together.
Oh, which one's that on again? The rehearsals.
Well,
That's on the on stage ones, isn't it?
no, the rehearsals for that's the way it is. None of them has Don't Cry Daddy and the Ghetto together. So I think and Walk Up. I think if you were sorry, John, you were asking me who came up with the idea of Walk a Mile in My Shoes being together with.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Uh huh.
I do
No,
beg your
you're
pardon.
okay.
I do beg your pardon. I still think the same thing stands as to who came up with the idea. I think it would have been Charlie Hodge as his musical director and Glenn Hardin as his arranger. I think those two would have pitched to Elvis, and Elvis would have made the decision himself. I think that's the way that would have worked.
And it's getting two songs done. I wouldn't say quickly because he's giving full dedication to the full commitment to the songs,
Yeah, absolutely. But as
but
you say,
one after the other. So
you think the February one's just a little bit slow for your liking.
uh, too slow.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't suit Elvis's energy. As of August. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But then again, I think Elvis became a lot more professional, and he was professional anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by August, he's got it together.
Mm-hmm.
He's contemporary as well. He's
Yeah.
he's not as rigid as
Mm-hmm.
the previous seasons.
Mm-hmm.
He's a bit more looser as well, and
Mm-hmm.
he's out of that sort of safety net and that safety zone thing going on.
Yeah.
And you could hear that on the 12th of August, most definitely.
Yeah. So
He's he's enjoying himself.
he's quickened up the pace a wee bit, walking in the shoes, and then he goes into There Goes My Everything next and slows it back down. I think, and I've got to say, John,
Do you think
did
maybe that? Do you think that maybe was sped up for the flow of the show? Maybe.
yeah, probably. I think so. I think so. I definitely think so. But I have to say, There Goes My Everything's not one of my favourite songs. It's really not a song that I really.
You
The
don't like
studio version.
you don't like the context as well from that, do you?
I didn't notice it, to be honest. It was my daughter actually who pointed it out to me. She happened to say, "Dad, do you not think those lyrics are a bit misogynistic?" And I'm going, "What do you mean?" And she says, "Well, listen to it. It's about possession." And I'm going, "Yeah." I'm going,
You can't
"Yeah."
unhear that now, can you? See when
No,
someone does that to you, like thanks for
no.
that.
But I don't think it's as obvious as Guitar Man. Sorry, not Guitar Man, US Mail. Guitar Man. I don't think it's as obvious as US Mail.
The only possession he had was his guitar.
Oh dear. US Mail from the Guitar Man sessions. There you go. I got it. Yeah, I got it. Sometimes the brain can be just faster than the mouth. The mouth can be faster than the brain. You know how it is.
I know.
But
But
what do
yeah,
you think?
yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think? Am I reading too much into that?
But back in those days, Leon, words were, I don't know, like I won't say. Oh, man, I was supposed to say this. Things were taken like differently back then, and people didn't do it in a way to cause offence as well. And in today's society where it's snowflakey.
But the possession could be the love of the person rather than the person themselves.
Yeah, of course it is, You know, when look, people say it themselves. Oh, I've lost everything. I've lost it. I've lost it. You know, when people, you know, have a breakdown of a marriage or a breakdown of a relationship, say, oh, I've lost everything. But it doesn't mean that you've lost. You've lost maybe the possessions you have. You've lost a life that you've had. You've
Yeah.
lost. You know, it could be totally taken out of context, which I think that song has been by your daughter, I think. Um, but as listening to it as just words, then yeah, totally, she's got a point there. But if she puts herself back into say 1970, meant a total different thing. I don't know. Maybe he did mean that, but it didn't. It wasn't picked up as much as it would be nowadays. I don't know.
Of course not. Of course not. But there's very little difference between that version and the versions from 24 Hours Earlier, which was in the Lost performances. They're almost identical.
It's better than the Nashville sessions, the Nashville
Yeah,
ones.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I find it very difficult to say Nashville and sessions in the same sentence.
Too many S's.
Too many S's in there, man. And
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a song I've never been particularly keen on. Not as a lyrical song, just it doesn't suit Elvis at
No, it
all.
doesn't. No.
It's I don't know. I think he only really sang it just to promote the Elvis Country album as well.
You're probably right.
Because you see him plugging it, don't you? Anyway,
Yeah, it does.
and
Oh no, you just reminded me of something. That's something else that they did in the 2001. They took the
yeah.
intro from There Goes My Everything and put it at the start of Just Pretend. And I'm going, oh,
Why do that?
honestly.
Because you know why? Because you know why?
Elvis fans are stupid. I mean, honestly.
But it makes Elvis sound stupid as well because it doesn't flow. It doesn't flow with the sentence that he's just came out with.
No, it doesn't. Oh,
It's like no.
So
And
anyway, now, right, John, we've talked about the stuff that we're not going to play. So every song from now on, we're going to listen to every song from now on in the show. So you mentioned it earlier on. You mentioned it right at the start, John. Words. Fabulous
words.
version. Fabulous version.
Oh, see when I first heard this, blown away. Blown away. Do you know what? I quite like the '69 version as well. It grew on me,
It's a bit bare.
bit bare, yep. But Elvis brings it to life in 1970 with a lot more production and a lot. It just, it's just absolutely phenomenal,
It's
brilliant.
and it's got that very strange key change in it as well.
The Elvis couldn't get his head around in the rehearsals. I've listening to that and we're like, how can he not know that? Because obviously we've heard it so many times. And I'm thinking, but he's performed it prior, so how could he not get there with it?
Do you know?
Because the arrangements is not that different. It's just a little bit faster,
Yeah.
but with a little bit more orchestration in it.
Yeah, but I don't. See, it's hard to talk about words without going back again to the 2001 version of the movie again. And
Yeah.
now, why did they do what they did? They used it as a way to advance from the convention room on the 4th of August to the main showroom rehearsals on the 10th of August, on the 7th of August. Why do that? Why not just use the live version?
And that's terrible editing.
Oh dear.
And the sound is awful, isn't it?
Yes,
From the two.
yes.
Oh, I could do better at myself on Mixcraft or Audacity.
And you know what? You can see both of those rehearsals in full. Guess where?
Oh, where would that be?
Yes, where would that be?
And it sounds a lot better though because and I hate when they do that, the split songs. I'm like, why?
They did it with 20 Days and 20 Nights as well.
Oh yes, that's right. Thank you for that reminder. And they did that in This Is Elvis as well with Blue Suede Shoes. One part of it, but that kind of works because it goes from unplugged to boom.
Yeah,
that kind of works, right?
yeah, that's
But
different.
when you're taking two songs who are getting rehearsed in the same arrangement, same style, why cut it into two segments? It's like there's just no need for that,
Yeah, absolutely agree.
and
I,
it spoiled a good song.
yeah, and then the using 20 days and 20 nights for it. Well, no. We'll just keep it stay with words. So you have that where you have the 4th of August in the convention centre, the 7th of August in the main showroom.
Yeah.
But then you have that bit where you see Elvis come on the stage and you've got the words on the screen explain. Going, well, what's the use of advancing it like that if you're just going to still going to introduce Elvis coming into the showroom for the rehearsal? What's the point? And they did the
What's
same
that?
thing with 20 Days and 20 Nights, where you had them rehearsing it in Culver City, and then they put that together with the Sweets and their backing vocals in the convention centre, and then supposed to use that to advance from one rehearsal to the next, and then you have that intro drum roll with Elvis coming in the door, and then the words at the bottom saying rehearsals took place, and I'm going, but then why use that as an advancement? Why not just hear one rehearsal, go to the next rehearsal, then have the Elvis coming in the door and play something else? It just, oh, why? Oh, sorry, my blood's starting to boil. The
Hmm,
veins
I
are
want.
beginning to the veins are beginning to pop. Oh dear, dear.
Watch, he's going to blow everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh dear, oh
But
dear, oh dear.
I've noticed as well when we start talking and like I've noticed we've kind of got the same kind of sort of nitpicks about certain things, and we
Yeah.
end up setting each other off.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
funny.
Yes. Yes. Well, we calm down and play the song, John.
I think we need to simmer down a wee bit,
Yeah, I think we will.
eh? Okay, folks, this is Words from August the 12th, 1970. Enjoy. So that was Words from August the 12th, 1970. And the next song we're going to review from that Pacific show is Sweet Caroline.
Sweet Caroline. Yeah. Song introduced in the February engagement, John.
Not much difference between the two, I don't think.
Unless you go to opening night from January 1970.
Have I heard that one? I can't remember.
Well, what happens in that one is Elvis tries to stay true to Neil Diamond's original arrangement and his original ending, and they can't do it, or even on stage, and Elvis has to stop it and restart the ending.
Oh, I think I need to listen to that.
Yeah, it's really is. Elvis is,
Is it
that way that.
awkward? Does it
Well,
sound awkward?
you know how the way that Neil Diamond's ending and it slows down
Yeah,
and then almost comes back up again.
yeah.
Well, Elvis tried to do it that way, and it didn't work. And then he has a wee bit at the end where we finally got the damn thing, and then right, and then almost from the next time he did it, it's almost the same way that you see it, and that's the way it is. Um, so I think they really had a problem with that, and I think Elvis. But there's something we'll speak about more when we do um, talk about the stuff in Memphis '69 where Elvis was trying to fulfill an obligation to Neil Diamond, and I think that was part of the reason that he tried to keep the same ending. But I think he just went to hell with it at the end of the day. At the end of the
At the
day.
end
At
of
the
the
end
day,
of the day.
it's got to work for you
Of course it
as the
does.
person singing it. I mean, because at the end of the day, Neil Diamond's a totally different singer to Elvis.
Yeah, he
Two
is.
different
Yes.
performers, so it might work for Neil Diamond, but it might not work for Elvis, and vice versa, really.
Well, I've written a couple of wee things on this where I've guessed a few things. I mean, it's all just an opinion.
Yeah.
And what I've written now, what is factual is that Elvis very rarely performed Sweet Caroline outside of Vegas or Tahoe. Very, very, very rarely performed it on the road. And what I think it is, I think that he felt that the arrangement that him and Glenn Hardin had come up didn't work without the full orchestra because it relies heavily on a string backing, particularly the chorus in the second verse.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, John? Do you think that you're a musician? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I think so. And you've got down here as well, like the 12th of December 76 years, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I've heard it once.
yeah.
I didn't like it.
No, it's not. But Elvis is not in the start of that engagement. He's in great form. He breaks he twists his ankle,
That's right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
then he's not quite the same after that.
No, he didn't give him. And then, but then again, it goes towards the end of the month, and it's like higher level of energy.
Oh wow, the last real peak.
The last real peak, exactly, and but Sweet Caroline's always been one of my favourites, and and seeing it on That's the Way It Is as well was pretty good,
It was.
and it's definitely a showstopper, big
It
time.
is. It is.
Um, and to me, it's funny. Like don't you think, Leon? Right, and this is me just a personal opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find a lot of Elvis fans throw away the on-stage album and they just go straight to That's the Way It Is?
I'd have to put myself into that.
So do I, because
Yeah.
I'm flicking through the albums and stuff, and say you've got That's the Way It Is right next to On Stage, right, and you'll say, yeah, I'll just go to That's the Way It Is, and you kind of forget that there's some little hidden gems on that album, and you just forget about them
There
because
is.
because they're on stage and That's the Way It Is. We're so close together as releases as well.
Well, that's not the reason that I skip by it, John. It's more to do with the fact that, to me, the onstage 1970 album is overproduced.
Which you've said in the past, yeah.
Yeah, it's over. If you go back and listen to other shows or other versions of songs, the same songs from elsewhere in that season,
Yeah.
it sounds a lot better and a lot more natural. I just think it's the album itself's overproduced. Great at the time because it's the only stuff that you had. But see, now we've been spoiled and we have so much other material, especially we're all talking about that January February season. There's so much other material there to compare it to, and I think that's why I feel that way. For example, if I want to listen to Sweet Caroline, I'll listen to That's the Way It Is. If I want to listen to Let It Be Me, I'll probably go to Opening Night and listen to that.
Yeah.
It's just, if I want to listen to Runaway, then I'll go back to Live 1969 and listen to the version before the guitar solo repair. It's just because there's so much material, and I think that album has been a victim of that.
It's a shame because they're good songs.
Oh, there's no doubt, and they're well done. I mean, there's not.
Oh
Elvis,
yeah, because Elvis was fully aware that he was getting recorded, and he states that on the album.
absolutely right, absolutely right. So, what do you think? Will we play the song now, John?
Yes, of course. So next up, folks, we're going to play Elvis with Sweet Caroline from the 12th of August, 1970. Okay, folks, that's Sweet Caroline from the 12th of August 1970, and the next song that we're going to talk about on the show, and from that show itself, is You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling. And I think you've got a lot to say about this, Leon, don't you?
Well, this version is the bona fide best Elvis version of the song, period. I just think it's absolutely magnificent. Now, first thing we have to do, we have to pay homage to the original, the Righteous Brothers version,
Of course, yeah.
produced by Phil Spector, and I think you'll agree with me, John, it's probably the greatest and most famous love pop song of the 60s, and quite rightly has its place as a true masterpiece. I mean,
Oh, by far. And what we were talking about in between the songs and that, it's one of the songs I play on a regular basis, not just Elvis's, but the Righteous Brothers themselves, because it's a classic.
Yeah. Now, it's really easy for us as Elvis fans to get not to be objective. It's very easy for us to get sucked into Elvis. Like, you hear a lot of people on Facebook, and there's an awful lot of it goes on that whatever Elvis did, it was the best, and that's just not the way it is.
No,
It's just
no.
not. It's just not. However, with this particular version, Elvis seems to take that song just to a completely new level.
Oh, yeah.
And I use this a lot of the time when we're talking about Elvis, John, and that I really see Elvis as a master interpreter,
Oh
and
yeah,
it just takes this, and this version, he just does something wonderful with it. Now this would be the fourth time, sorry, the fifth time that Elvis had done it live. So the first couple of times he's a wee bit unsure, and the version you see, and that's the way it is from the 11th of August dinner show. There is a mistake which they fixed in
yeah.
the 2001 re-edit. They fixed the mistake. If you go watch the original, that's what it is. You see Elvis's mistake. He goes to sing the wrong lyrics, but quickly sorts it.
Sorts it, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just that arrangement, and it's all atmospheric. You get
I
that.
quite like Leon. Sorry for interrupting.
Sure.
I quite like in the original that's the way it is, and Elvis is coming into the showroom. Do you remember? And
Yeah.
you've lost that loving feeling, but just the instrumental, you know.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I love that. It's bringing drama. It's such a dramatic song.
Yeah. And you've got Elvis. He just he has that new arrangement. But what's really strange about that arrangement? It sounds faster, but it's actually a slow tempo in the Richie Brothers sing it. I think it's because of the power that Elvis puts in it.
Yeah, and because when you listen to Righteous Brothers, right, their versions a mere love song, right?
Yes.
But with Elvis, it's theatrical, it's
It's
dramatic.
so
Oh yes, definitely, and it's not. See, with You've Lost That Loving Feeling, you're getting the best of both worlds with audio and visual.
yes.
So you can enjoy it as just listening to it with headphones on, or in the car, or whatever, or in your stereo, or whatever.
But
But then again, if you're watching it as a visual, you're seeing the two together, and you're like, holy moly, it's a brilliant
what's
song.
what's really clever about it is the way that the Elvis and Glenn Harden's arrangement and the way they've put this together. That complete darkness. It's almost as great theatre as it's pure Vegas. It is just pure Vegas. And the minute Elvis turns round, you've got that vocal, and the audience is right there in the palm of his hand, and oh, don't get me wrong, he already had that with this show, but at that point, it's just magnificent. But it really was always a highlight to me of the original album. I really did like the original album, which is the same version. Obviously, this is the RCA master version.
Yep, and
But
but Leon, isn't there? There's a
yes,
big
there's
but
a
in
big
there,
but.
isn't there? And what is
Yeah,
that?
it is. Well, in 2001, when we got this 12th of August show released for the first time, we finally heard that there was a reprise. Elvis
Hmm.
stops and restarts, and I think he's feeding off the electricity in that room, and it's the only ever time he ever did a reprise to that song. And ever since I've listened to that, I've never went back and listened to the original master because I know that reprise is there.
It's and I know, and I didn't know that until I even looked at your channel. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah,
What is this I
it's
see before my eyes?
yeah, it's just, and the reprise is you can. Do you know what's really amazing about that? The reprise, he always kind of starts in. He wipes his face with a towel and then he starts singing it again. And the band and the backing singers, they're right in. There's no apprehension. They're right back in.
That's it.
It's great. It's brilliant. It's absolutely fabulous. So, John, I think we'll have to play the full lot. I don't think we can just play the master. I think we have to play the whole thing.
Yeah, I think we should as well. And that's what it's going to be. And it's You've Lost That Loving Feeling with reprise. And if you're familiar with the song, you're going to be blown away. And once you hear it, like I have recently, you can't unhear that reprise now. And you don't want anything else but that now. So enjoy. So yeah, here we go. You've Lost That Loving Feeling with reprise. Okay, folks, that was You've Lost That Loving Feeling, the reprise version, or the reprise, which way you want to pronounce it, from the 12th of August 1970. And the last song for this part and it's part one of two, is Polk Salad Annie. And you've got quite a lot of things to say about this one, don't you, Lee?
Oh yeah, I love Elvis's version of Polk Salad Annie, especially in 1970, and I just think it's brilliant. It's a real showstopper.
Oh yeah, most
However,
definitely, yeah.
yeah, I'm not a great fan of the later versions with the new arrangement and that with the brass at the start and all that. I'm not a great version of that, but the 1970 versions, it's great. It's great. It's great visually, and you can listen to. It's good. It's a good listen as well, and it's hard not to move when
Oh
it's
yeah.
playing. But my real bugbear is that if you go to YouTube, Elvis's this version of Polk Salad that we're just about to play from the original, from both versions of That's the Way It is one of the most reacted to Elvis performances on YouTube. To people do Elvis reaction videos,
Yeah.
but the original, whilst the original version is complete, the new version has an edit in it. It's only about 30 seconds long, and it's when Elvis does that scatting bit in it, and he says, "I learned this in the army," and that's all taken out. And now that might seem like nothing, but to Elvis fans, it's as if FGM are treating Elvis fans with contempt, as if we won't notice it.
Of course we bloody well will. And
You know, and
there's a thing I got a gripe with as well, and this is this is like the pettiness of all pettiness, right? You know the bit when it goes, suck a little poke salad to me, and Elvis does
yeah,
that expression with his face, like he does. I don't even know if you
yeah,
know what bit I'm even on about.
yeah,
And in the 1970 version, it pans in on that
yes,
but in the new one, I'm like, where is it? Where is that? Where is it?
yes,
It's like
yes,
he doesn't care. It's like This is like yeah,
yeah.
and oh, and then he gets really into it.
And do you know the best of it is that's not the only edit. Patch It Up is edited in both films,
Yeah,
and that really annoys me. It's two different edits. The original one that had the whole second verse taken out, and I think that might have been a time thing. So I can understand why Dennis Sanders did that. That's a bit different, but to me, it's unforgivable in the second one. And the one they do is he takes out about almost three reprises of the chorus. I'll patch it up and takes it out, and it just doesn't feel right.
no, it doesn't. No, it really
But
doesn't in
the
the
but the
slightest. No.
worst but the worst edit of all to me is in Suspicious Minds, where it's the 11th of August dinner show,
Yeah.
and yet the bit where Elvis approaches the sweets and it's that bit's taken from the 12th of August dinner show. And
I know.
I'm
I
going,
know.
why? Use one performance or the other. Don't. Did you really think? I mean, it really, really, really annoys me.
It's badly
And
edited, that whole movie.
it's just, it's terrible
It's
for that.
it's carnage. That's what it
Oh,
is.
it is. But John, and I love this version of Polk Salad Annie when I see it complete, right? However, I quite, I really have a real soft spot for the 11th of August dinner show version, where Elvis is really cheeky in it,
Yeah.
and he starts off with that "oh yeah" right at the start, and the whole version is bordering on the suggestive. The whole version, it's magical.
There you
It's
go.
absolutely magical. So, if you get a chance, go to YouTube and look at both versions. They're both on my channel, by the way. So go in there and have a look. And there was five versions. They were either partially or completely filmed during the production of That's the Way It Is.
Yeah.
They're all superb, and they all have very subtle differences. And that subtle difference is usually due to Elsie's injection of humour. But what's really strange is the 10th of August, the opening show one is quite short. It's only about 3.5 minutes long.
I quite
For
like
whatever
that one,
reason.
to be honest with you,
That's
Leon.
it. That's got a fabulous ending to it. That is a really
Oh,
good
ho,
theme
ho,
song.
ho, ho, ho.
It's
Oh,
really good.
it leaves you wanting more.
It does.
Yeah, and you can tell he's a little bit nervous. You can
Yeah,
tell, but that's nervous
yeah,
energy, and I like
it
that.
is. But do you know the 12th of August dinner show version is also very good. Um, but that's the version where there's very little of it filmed, and Elvis finishes up kissing a member of the audience at the end, rather than have that big massive karate.
Is that
It
is
goes,
that the
it
one
goes
where he
that.
goes? Is that the one where he drinks the champagne? Is
No,
that from
that's
that?
after this. No, that's after the version we're going to play. That's the 12th of August midnight show. That's then where he then goes walk and tells the band to keep playing, and then goes into the
You
audience.
play the heck out of it, and yeah, I
Yeah,
love that. Oh,
yeah,
it's so
and
good.
that's another thing about the version that I have on YouTube. I've left all that in. I haven't edited that out. I've left that all in after the song. I've left all that in so that you can see everything in context.
And that's we could say that's the way it is all the time, but that's it's
Yeah.
no pun intended, but um, that's the way it should have been though,
Yes,
and
it is.
because it's. But don't you think, Leon, that was because it was made as a movie as well? It
Yeah.
should be seen as a concert, not a movie.
Yes, it should be, and that's what Dennis Sanders tried to do with the original one. And that's, to me, I still maintain that that's why none of the 13th of August dinner show was used, because he was trying to create that illusion although the costumes are slightly different, but at least they're all white. And I think that's the illusion that he was trying to create. And I think that could have been that could have been kept in the new movie if you kept all the 13th of August dinner show stuff together, and maybe just a wee bit later
Yeah,
in the
because
film.
there's a difference between a movie and a documentary.
Yes, there is.
1970 is a documentary.
Yes, it is.
It wasn't meant for highly getting highly edited.
No, it wasn't.
Um, because you'll find that on tour wasn't like that.
No, it wasn't. It
Not in
wasn't.
the slight. And do you know what I think? Can you imagine if That's the Way It Is was made like on tour?
Wow. Now,
Can
now
you
you're talking.
imagine that? Can you imagine that? And it was only
Yes.
2 years later, not
Well,
even 2 years.
but I still think the original one was made the way it should have been made.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, taking the interviews aside, Leon, right?
Uh-huh.
One, you've got the best music in it, right? The best songs. Uh, it's visually better, right?
Yes.
Okay, it's not high def, right?
Yes.
But camera angles are better. I don't know. I
There's
just
too many audience shots in the new one.
fake ones as well.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and it's too much screams and this and that. Like
Yes.
no, 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 no.
Yes.
Like in the 1970 one, you can actually hear the music better.
Yes. I totally, absolutely. And do you know what's really strange is with the 2001, you'd think it would be in stereo and it's in mono, and that's really weird when considering that it's supposed to be an upgrade, and that's just really,
It's weird
it,
that, innit?
it
It's not
really,
nice on the ears.
it's not. It's good to look at, but that's it. But of course, had all that been perfect, then I probably wouldn't have started a YouTube channel in the first place. So, so
Well, there you go. And it's funny because people will like revert to your channel to hear it the way it is. Supposed to have been, sorry.
yes, absolutely. And I mean, I started re-editing the audio to That's the Way It Is when the deluxe edition came out in 2014, and
Yeah.
I did it purely for my own benefit because I was sick of looking at That's the Way It Is, and I knew that the new audio was there, and I'm going, I want to watch this listening to that. So I put it together, and then it was after that somebody had said to me, listen, why don't you put it on YouTube and let everybody else hear it like that? So that's what I started to do. So if I'd never done that in the first place, my YouTube channel would never have existed in the first place. But I really think that MGM could have done so much more with that film than they actually did. Hey,
Oh,
isn't isn't
definitely.
isn't isn't hindsight a wonderful thing, John?
It's always a good thing to have. That's for
Is
sure. And I think it's a good song to finish up on. It's a high
it
note.
is?
And the thing is, folks, we're only halfway through this show.
Yeah.
So that's it. I mean, it was what, a 50-minute show, our show, but to go into great detail, it takes a lot longer because you're dissecting song by song. So, you know, this is far from over from discussing this show. We're only halfway through.
Yes.
But time is of the essence, and look out for more episodes. There's going to be a lot more in the new year. Um, you're going to find us on lots of formats, like platforms. We're going to be on YouTube as of the radio as well. But yeah, just look out for more episodes. And this has been episode 1 of the 12th of August 1970. And we're going to finish up with Polk Salad Annie. And from myself here and Leon as well, we bid you a very good evening, or whatever time it is, wherever you are.
Yeah.
I've fairly enjoyed the second episode. It's been really good.
It's been great.
It's been great, and it's something that like, the way I see it is, it's something that you've had your teeth into for a while, Leona, with this show,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I find I am learning a lot more from you about something you're interested in more than maybe what I am, or vice versa, with these podcast shows and radio shows as well. And coming up in the near future, we're going to review the 1969 stuff as well. So watch out for that, folks. And on the description below, on this podcast, I'll put Leon's YouTube channel there as well, and I'll put the radio station that I'm on as well every Sunday. So you can catch us somewhere. It doesn't have to be here. You can catch us everywhere, can't you, Leon? So it's
Yeah, absolutely.
but it's been a splendid show, and I bid you farewell.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's been a splendid show, and I bid you farewell.